It's been a couple of years since we've had a Wes Anderson film to enjoy, and The French Dispatch is finally here. But are you going to enjoy it? On the occasion of the death of its beloved editor, the staff of The French Dispatch, a widely circulated American magazine based in the French city of Ennui, convenes to write his obituary. Memories flow into the creation of 4 stories: a travelogue of the seediest sections of the city itself, an artist profile about a criminally insane painter, his muse, and his ravenous dealers, a chronicle of love and death on the barricades at the height of student revolt, and a suspenseful tale of drugs, kidnapping, and fine dining. Now, this is presented in an almost 1-to-1 square ratio, with a lot of it being in black and white. Now, there are portions that are also in color, and sometimes it's used solely as an accent point in a scene. When colors are used, much of the time they're pastels and lighter in tone, but he isn't afraid to use bold colors either. There are portions with deep oranges and dark reds, which then convey power, strength, and confidence. So the aesthetics of this are without a doubt Wes Anderson. I mean, there's the signature symmetry in the framing, where just about every focal point is centered within the screen. I find it very satisfying, especially as the majority of the time that the camera is locked down in position and the characters and backdrops track from side to side within the frame. Now, occasionally the camera will also zoom in or out, which in normal circumstances is awkward and even amateurish, but because it's part of Anderson's style, it's expected, and I think it would be strange if it wasn't utilized. There's also a miniature effect that is used to make portions feel like we as the audience are peering down into a diorama, creating a true voyeuristic experience. Now, we've seen stop motion from the director, and obviously live action as well, and this one incorporates both, but he also introduces a new style to his repertoire with hand-drawn animation. One sequence even feels like it's an episode of Scooby-Doo with a massive French influence. The animation looks great, but it was certainly different and even a bit jolting to see it in action, especially because it was so unexpected. Now, just like with many other directors, Anderson has his list of actors that have participated in some of his other works. We see regulars like Bill Murray, Owen Wilson, Jason Schwartzman, Tilda Swinton, Frances McDormand, and Bob Balaban, along with some newcomers like Timothée Chalamet, Henry Winkler, and even Benicio del Toro. The 4 stories that play out are sort of like vignettes with a larger story encompassing them all. Now, each is a quirky tale that runs through just a gamut of emotions. The first story is probably the shortest, and it showcases Owen Wilson in a dryly comedic role. And there were a couple of times that I distinctly laughed out loud because of the situational comedy. Now, for me, the longest story is also my favorite of the 4. And that one showcases Adrian Brody, Benicio del Toro, Léa Seydoux, and Tilda Swinton. And it's about a criminally insane artist and the broker who wants to profit off of the art. Now, the way this one's told, I forgot that what I was witnessing was actually a magazine article that was playing out. The performances are peculiar, but oh my gosh, they're satisfying. And the humor is subtle and it's hilarious. There's an absurdity to this, and really all of the stories that are just part of the charm of this film. Each of the actors play their roles with flair and restraint when it's called for. I mean, even the smaller roles are executed in ways to capture our attention and then enhance the story. Take, for example, Saoirse Ronan. She has a very minimal role in one of the stories, but in it she sings a few lines of a song that are just simply mesmerizing. Or then Christoph Waltz. He's barely got a speaking part, and yet he exudes the awkwardness of someone trying too hard to impress. Now, despite this only being an hour and 48 minutes, there were some portions where the pace of the film seemed to drag, making this feel longer than the actual runtime. And I noticed the time towards the end of the 3rd story and then in the middle of the 4th. Now, the 3rd story in particular is a quieter tale, even though it surrounds revolution, which I think contributed to me feeling the time. I mean, this didn't ruin the movie for me, but I did have to resist checking my watch to see how long I'd been watching. Now, even though I'm a huge Wes Anderson fan, I'm not a diehard one who believes that he can do no wrong. I mean, I love some of his movies, and I really like others, but there are a couple that just didn't resonate with me. And unpopular opinion here, but Rushmore isn't one that I gravitate towards. That being said, I really think you have to be a fan of his to enjoy this movie. It's not self-indulgent, but it does play to just about every style the director has embraced. As we left the screening tonight, many of the comments I heard from regular audience members were, "That was trash," or "There's an hour and 45 minutes of my life that I won't get back." And then from other critics I overheard, they loved and appreciated it. My son and I, who are big fans, scratched our heads wondering if we'd seen the same movie as some of those that had hated it, but I think that's kind of how Anderson films work. This is probably one of his less accessible stories, especially because it's a story about a story. With Moonrise Kingdom, we have a love story. With Fantastic Mr. Fox, we have an adventure. With Life Aquatic, we have a memoir and a quest. And this is us just watching the words in magazine articles come to life with small glimpses behind the scenes of how the magazine functioned in publishing those stories. So overall, The French Dispatch is a quirky collection of stories and characters with stunning visuals and an aesthetic that is obsessively symmetrical and plainly colorful. The individual tales are engaging, made all the more intriguing by stellar performances. And while the pacing could be improved to be more consistent, this provides a gratifying escape, albeit a peculiar one. And I fully acknowledge that this isn't for everyone, and maybe not even for most, but if you know that you're a Wes Anderson fan, I think you can get some great enjoyment from the man who's clearly sitting right in his element. There's no sex, a bunch of nudity, some profanity, and some violence. I give The French Dispatch 4.5 out of 5 couches. So are you a Wes Anderson fan? If you are, which of his movies is your favorite? Mine is still Moonrise Kingdom, but I get a kick out of so many. I would, though, love to hear which is yours in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.